But before this episode starts, I'd just like to say a few things. Basically, this wasn't the first time we had recorded this episode, so it does sound like we get bored at some parts. Another thing is, basically, right at the start, it goes very slow, and I start waffling on. I start waffling. Just bear with me. It's mainly because we had to record it for the second time. But thank you for listening to this part and enjoy listening to the podcast. Hello guys, and welcome to the second episode of Fright Nights on NightmareFuel. Today we are talking about the Outlast series. Today I'm joined by two very nice people. Callum.
Oh, cheers. Well, yes, my name's Callum. I'm a very small streamer. I usually stream on Twitch and sometimes YouTube, and that's me.
And Eden.
Hello, I am an aspiring artist, author, and gamer.
Fair enough. So basically, with Outlast, there's Outlast 1, Whistleblower 2, and the upcoming Outlast trials. So we'll begin with where it began, with Outlast 1.
Yes.
Good old Miles Upshur.
Yep. For you that don't know what Outlast is, you're 7, 8 years behind now. So you play as this character. You play as a journalist, Miles Upshur, as Eden
Also,
said.
spoilers ahead.
Yep, very many, a lot of spoilers. Basically, you play as a journalist named Miles Upshur who is contacted by Wayland Park to about some suspicious activity going on in Mount Massive Asylum. And
Yep, and the reason
go.
the reason it's called the Whistleblower DLC is because in the beginning you're reading an email about the suspicious stuff. You don't know who it's from, but then you play the Whistleblower DLC and you find out it's Wayland. So in the second, not last, Whistleblower, you play as the Whistleblower.
Yes. So you go to Mount Massive and you go through all these obstacles just to die at the end. So let's start with Outlast 1. Right.
Yeah, you sort of die at the end. Sort of.
Your physical form dies at the end.
But spiritually, you go on.
So with Outlast 1, you start in the car. You start in this little Jeep. And you go into Mount Massive. That's where you first meet the big behemoth himself, Chris Walker.
Little pig.
So it starts with going through the library, getting jump scared. The man on the spike, the security guard on the spike, he tells you like you need to get out and stuff like that. And then you go through the doors, and that's where you see Chris for the first time. You walk past him and try squeeze through a little gap, and that's where he picks you up and throws you through the window, knocking you unconscious. And that's where you first meet our good old friend Father Martin, who tells you that there's a lot to witness here. So he's practically just telling you, oh yeah, there's a lot of content in here, you'll make millions. But
Essentially.
you go through the first part of the game, end up down in the basement, and then back into the main building, stuff like that, blah blah blah, die at the end. We will get more into detail, but just quick summary there. So first thing I want to ask is, like, do you guys have a favourite character from Outlast 1?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Mind sharing?
Eden, you can go first if you want.
Oh yeah, sure thing. Sorry, I thought I felt a sneeze coming on, but My favorite character would easily have to be Traeger. He was all in all my favorite character in the first one, simply because of his design, his voice, his AI. Everything about him was just quality.
Yeah. Cal?
And for me, it would be Chris Walker, the poster boy. He's just so iconic. Because everyone who's played Outlast, even heard of Outlast, just knows who that man is.
It's quite
Or
hard
that
to miss him.
Yeah. You know, he's just so noticeable and so... Oh, I don't even know the words. He's just
Like you
iconic.
said, iconic, yeah.
Yeah.
Well...
I was gonna say...
You go on.
I went into Outlast the first... So my friend's girlfriend actually got me all the games, because I had them on my wish list. She was super nice. She got me all the games. And at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, now I need to definitely play these games. I had seen Chris Walker, not knowing who he was, but the first little pig jump scare, that actually freaked me out, where he just picks you up and just yeets you through the window.
Yeah. Well, personally, the first time I seen Outlast was my dad was playing it. He used to stream, and he was streaming it, and I just sat and watched, and I was like, I want to play that. And I did, and now I speedrun it. But my personal favourite character has to be Traeger as well. Just like you said, the character model, the voice, and his weapon, the giant shears, or giant scissors as some people would call it. But a lot of his lines are very, very memorable to me. I have a lot of them in my head. I can say a few. My favourite ones, when he's talking about, well, when he's wheeling you into the first room to get your fingers chopped off, you go past someone that can't talk because their tongue has been cut out. And he's just like, you weren't putting that tongue to use anyway, and turns around the corner and he just says, truth be told, I was just tired of licking my own stamps. And just that, it was just kind of like, there's a little comedic bit in a scene where you know...
Dark comedy.
Yeah. It was a comedic bit in a dark area of the game.
Yeah, not only that, his AI was scary. I remember a part in the game where when you get out from the chair, and then at one point you can go into the vents to avoid him. I specifically remember him being in one room, and I'm like, oh, he's there. So I keep going, and then I come out the room, and I just hear the dun. Hey, buddy, how are you doing? And he's right behind me.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience. Basically, I got his attention and started running through both the big rooms, and
Yep.
I said the music disappeared. The music just stopped. So in my head, I was like, oh, he'll be in one of the rooms still. So I start moving the movable grate thing, and
Yep.
that's when I just hear from across the other side of the hall, just him shouting "Buddy," and that you just never know where he is until it's too late.
Yeah, because he knows those halls like the back of his hand. Makes sense. He's worked there for many years.
Yeah.
Overall, I think the first one had things that made it scarier in a way. It was more about the scares, but the second one
More story.
was a better story. I thought the story was amazing.
Yes. I am agreeing with that.
Yeah, only disadvantage was that there were a lot more chase scenes, which really kind of ruined the mood, and they had the whole stamina thing, which made those parts harder sometimes.
Yeah, because a lot of the parts, like, you'd have to run so much, and by the time you get to some like certain area, it's like you can't run anymore, and they're right behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember just before you go down into the mine, before you go down the elevator, you press the button to bring the elevator up, and there are 2 to 3 heretics on the elevator coming up, and you need to run. You run straight away from the. You run straight from the elevator upstairs, jump back down, run back to the elevator. But it's such a long run, and most of the time, you can't run that. Like, I died twice.
I think I died 3 or 4 times on that section.
Because it's also all red as well because of the blood.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of the mines in Outlast 2, did you guys know that because of the scene that happens with Lynn, remember where she's tied up, and then there's that freaking orgy going around with the heretics after Val says, God doesn't love you, not the way I do, when she reveals her true face? Because of that scene with the implied, rape of Blake, where that girl the heretic girl crawls on top of him, but then it cuts to another school scene, that actually got the game banned in Australia.
It kind of makes sense, but it's also it's just a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, here in the US, there's only one game that I know that was actually banned. Is it okay if I tell the story?
Go for it.
Sure.
It was a game, it was an adult party game where these girls, where I think you had to answer trivia. These were actual real life, women. It's full motion video. And when you answer it right, these girls flash you. You know, kind of like pornographic adult game. Here's the thing, though. One of the girls lied about her age. She claimed that she was 23. She was 17. She made it into the final version of the game, but that's just something I'm trying to say. Other than that, we don't censor video games because the Supreme Court said that video games are art and they cannot be censored.
Yeah. Right, okay, back to Outlast. With Outlast 1, because we kind of drifted off onto 2 there. Back to Outlast 1, there are many glitches in that game as well. Many speedrunners use these glitches, but there are so many. There's one right at the start.
Really?
Oh, go on.
Oh yeah.
No.
I've seen one of those glitches at the very start of the game, isn't it? You know, when you go up to the house and you jump over this little fence, then you can go down to the end of the game straight away.
Yeah, you go through the first gate. You go through the first gate, the first fence gate, and basically you run right and literally hug against the bush while running and jump, and you fall right down into the elevator shaft, where you end up at the bottom of the game, the very end of the game, the last when you get down into the basement.
I just can't
the
believe
bunker.
that's in the game. That's crazy.
And then there's also a few where you can skip the whole having to go get the key card scene at the start of the game as well. You can literally go into the room beside the security door, jump on top of the door, and jump through the wall into the security room. And there's a few where you can just skip most of the game.
Imagine if someone accidentally came across that on their first playthrough.
I know.
Just by sheer luck. And they just missed the entire game. They're like, what was that?
That game was awfully short.
Just phase through a wall, credits start to go.
Oh no, now you have become the host! Bang, 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 bang.
But what happened? But, Oh, no, go on.
Speaking of the ending of Outlast 1, onto Whistleblower. The beginning of Whistleblower takes place in that area, and there was something I just realized before this podcast. Yeah. I put it in a Reddit post right here. But one of the main villains that a lot of people pretty much the main villain in the Outlast Whistleblower was Eddie Gluskin, known as the Groom.
Yes.
I did not realize this, but the guy that they're putting into the tube is Eddie.
It doesn't look like him, though. The hair's the same, but...
The hair's the same. At first, I thought the same thing, But then you look at the monitor where it's monitoring him.
And the
And
the labels.
POD2 case number 196 or
I think it was 8.
Patient Eddie Gluskin. So that's him.
Yeah, you don't realise it. The only thing that actually kind of looked like him was the hair.
Exactly.
And he got completely new clothing as well when he started trying to make people into his bride.
Yeah, a lot of people, I remember in the comments it says something about him not having enough time until you realize that Miles was knocked out for hours.
Yeah.
Then Sawblade scene, escapee.
Yeah. So what was like, what would your least favorite part of Outlast 1 be? Like a part they could have done better, or a part they could have changed a little bit.
There was one part that seemed a little bit too open-ended. It was after Father burns himself on the cross, and then you have to run from Chris Walker. Like, I didn't know that you had to walk not to the end of the hall, but take a completely different turn or something like that. That was something I didn't like, but it was pretty minor.
Yeah, it's a fair point. My least favourite part was actually a character death. And you'd think it'd be Trigger, but no, it was Chris. It's like
Chris
just gets picked up and thrown through a vent where he is like practically torn to shreds. He's shredded up.
Part of me thinks that when that guy died, part of me thinks it was doing him a favor, because I know in the comics, I haven't read them, but he suffered from like serious PTSD and anxiety, which is why he scratched his nose and lips off.
Yeah.
But then he gets picked up and just schlooped by the Wall Rider.
Yeah, it makes sense. But Callum, do you have a least favourite part of the game?
I can't really think of any. Honestly, I quite liked all of it. I thought the pacing of the game was pretty good. I think there was one bit I think they could have improved on, and it was the section right before you lose the camera. In that big building with like 5 floors or something. I can't remember exactly the scene, but I remember there was a bit before that. We've got to go around.
Is it the one where you're trying to get the fuses, the 3 fuses?
I think you've got to go down to a laundry chute or something.
Yeah,
and grab a
3
key.
fuses.
I thought that was, I don't know. I don't want to say challenging. Just, I don't know. It just, I just don't think it suited the game in that sort of sense.
When we come back to Outlast 2, there is something I want to say about my least favorite part in that game.
Well, we can go to Outlast 2 just now.
Sure.
There's not much we can talk about much more.
Callum, do you know the ending to Outlast Whistleblower?
I don't. No.
Oh! Should I tell him?
Go for it.
Sure.
The ending is where Waylon, he gets out of the asylum, and he finds Miles' Jeep.
Oh.
But then, you see something come out of the asylum behind you. It's this black, shadowy figure with all this stuff, like all these clouds surrounding it. It's Miles. He's now the Wall Rider host.
What?
Yeah, Miles.
Yeah,
Miles is the Wall Rider, and when you get out of the asylum and into his Jeep, you see him come out of the door and just stand there, float there, watching.
That's why I was saying he was kind of dead, not really.
I want to play that now. That sounds good.
But I won't tell you the definitive ending,
okay.
because there is a scene after that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, right, on to Outlast 2. What did you want to say?
Okay, there was this one part that I hated, where there's a waterfall and there's this little tiny dude on top of a huge dude's back,
Mm-hmm.
and there's freaking heat-sinking heat-seeking crossbow bolts, and I died like 5 or 6 times because they always saw me, and they just one-shot me. One time, they even shot me through a door.
Oh, there was a time where it was on. It's one of my Twitch clips actually, where I'm in this building and I see him outside, like outside the window. So I go and lock the door. I go pull the deadbolt on it and camp the window. So the only way he could have got in was through the window. No, there was another door.
Oh no!
So I'm sitting there at the window, like, he can't get in. And I turn to my left, he's just standing there looking at me, just with a crossbow out.
That would be pretty scary.
And I don't think I've jumped that much at Outlast 2, and that was the third time I played it. I will send the clip into the Discord after this.
Please. I
You've
want to
seen it,
laugh.
Cal.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Cal, you've seen it.
No, I want to laugh at it some more.
Yeah, so I can't remember that character's name or those characters. I can't remember their name. But
The monsters?
the
It's the big
The
guy with the
small-
little guy on his back in it.
the small man with the hunchback.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember their names because a lot of them are not actually like officially named in Outlast 2.
They were though, because I think one was
Oh, they
Nick.
Alright.
Or they're never referred to.
I think the big guy was Nick. Because
Let me look that up.
I remember the little one saying, "Nick, drive those nails in when you're getting hung up by the cross." Hung up on the cross.
Yep, the big guy is Nick, and gender, male, story. Nick is a giant, appears to be a giant, so man, situation. Laird! Laird is his name.
That was it.
Okay.
That was it. Yeah, so he was. I liked his character, well, their character, but it was also like they were really annoying. Because they
Yeah, they were
they
pretty
had
annoying.
aimbot. They had aimbot. They like never missed.
I'm sure I
But-
got past that bit on like my second go. Because I
Well,
had
'cause
no...
I remember the bit where I was talking about it in the clip. I was stuck there for ages, and then I watch your stream of it, and you get past it in seconds. I'm like, how?
It wasn't the clearest thing, either. How to, escape that.
You just took a weird turn and ended up
Yeah,
there.
I just kind of started run.
Exactly.
I just, started to run, and I somehow got out. Pure luck,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So
Character.
Yeah, go on.
One character that I really wish they did a bit more with, even though he was the main character, was Sullivan Papanoth.
Yes, because you only see him in 2 scenes.
Yeah, you only see him in the church in the beginning. No, in like the
You only see him in
mid-section.
that chapel.
You only see him in the chapel, and then you only see him at the end of the game after Lynn's dead.
Yeah, like for being the poster boy for Outlast 2,
Outlast
you only
2.
see him twice. You only see him for about 10 minutes out of the whole
Yeah, not even that,
six,
probably.
6 to 8 hour game.
Exactly. Oh, speaking of 1 and 2, are you guys aware of how this is connected? Speaking of Lynn, that leads me into how Outlast 1 and 2 are connected.
I don't.
Neither.
I
So-
don't believe so.
In Outlast, it's a pretty... You can miss how it's connected. But in Outlast 2, when Lynn's giving birth, first of all, that scene caught me totally off guard. I did not know it was going to be that realistic. When she's giving birth, Blake sees the baby come out, And then he holds it up to Lynn, and she says there's nothing there, and then she dies. There were a couple of things that will tip you off. One, the baby has no shadow. Two, there's no umbilical cord. Those are two things that people notice pretty quickly. Because in Outlast 1, you can read documents that Mount Massive about these women, nurses, who would develop what they call a phantom pregnancy, where they'd have every characteristic of being pregnant, yet when they do an ultrasound, there was no baby, and when they'd, quote, give birth, they'd die, because there was no baby there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go on.
But, sorry, that was another thing I just want to make sure. That is not the only thing that connects the two.
No.
What connects the two is you can find a document, because throughout the game you see this big radio tower, and it's what's causing your character's hallucinations, and that tower is owned by Murkoff, so this is all Murkoff's doing.
Yes. Right, so with Outlast story, you play as Blake Langerman. What was he? He was a cameraman. He was a cameraman for a online news source, newstomorrow.net. And he done that with his wife Lynn, who was the so-and-so news anchor. They're in a helicopter, and this bright light, which we later found to be the radio tower?
I think so. They were going to investigate a mysterious murder.
Well, yeah, because Jane Doe, Ethan's daughter,
Yes.
from partway in the game, Ethan's daughter, short hair, cut like a boy's. No, blonde hair, cut like a boy's. That was the line. She was pregnant, I think. I think she was actually pregnant.
Was she?
Yeah.
And Sullivan Knopf wanted to kill the child, but Ethan was like, no, and made her run away. And she was found down in some area by someone, and later contacted the authorities, where everyone else found out. And that's when Lynn and Blake said, yeah, let's go check it out. And the bright light makes the helicopter engine fail, and they crash, and then that's where everything starts.
Right, and the pilots get skinned.
Yeah, after the crash, you wake up and you find the helicopter all broken and on fire, and you realise that there's no bodies in it. And then you walk just a few seconds down the path, and you see this man that has been skinned. I wouldn't say alive, because we don't know if he was alive or dead at the time. He was skinned.
Because he could have died in the crash.
Yeah, he was skinned up onto a log. And
oh yes.
So there was just, and then you keep moving. You find this little village. And that's when you start seeing a bunch of people being very, very suspicious, looking at you but walking backwards, stuff like that. And then that's when you first meet Marta. After going through a few doors, you meet Marta for the first time.
With the big cross.
For yous that don't know, Marta is a very tall woman with a massive pickaxe-like cross.
Yes.
And she weaponizes it.
And she is fast.
Oh yes.
She is extremely quick.
And she walks. Like, it looks like she walks really
slow.
She
doesn't run.
She still catches up.
She doesn't run. She just goes into ×2 speed.
Doesn't she repeat
×2
like
speed.
Bible verses?
God
Or Noth verses.
God give me voice, God guide my hand, stuff like that. That's
So
what
there
I
might
can
be
remember.
some actual biblical stuff mixed in with, Outlast 2 Noth stuff. Oh, we're at 29 minutes 30 seconds.
Keep going. Stop at 35.
Sorry, what was that?
Stop at 35.
All right.
Sure.
So, one of the things which game did you guys think was scarier?
Outlast 2.
Personally, too.
I thought 2 was the scariest, not only because it was overall the story made it a bit scarier, also because I related to a lot of the stuff on a personal level. Like, I was raised Catholic, and it was heavily based in the Catholic faith.
Yes.
But not only that, like, the school scenes. I went to something called catechism, which is basically how Catholics teach their kids all about God and the Bible and stuff.
Yeah.
When I was like, I must have been like 8 or 9, from 6 to 10 years old, I went to catechism, and I didn't go to a private school, I went to public school, but I went to catechism at a private school after school, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just being in Outlast 2 and seeing an environment so similar to that to me was just so scary that it was like, I relate to this, like, on a personal level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Except I didn't have a 4-armed rape demon coming after me.
That actually masturbates when he's running.
Yep.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yep.
I've never heard this. I think I'm gonna need to.
It's so
If you
messed
look
up.
really carefully at his character model, he's masturbating when he's running.
Okay, I'm doing incognito. Loudermilch. Walk.
Incognito mode.
Because usually I wasn't looking at him. Because
No, you're
I
usually
was
running
like,
away
oh
from
my,
him.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, get away from me. Let me find a video clip.
Yeah, so whilst he's doing that, there was a few references in Outlast 2 as well. One that I can remember straight away is when you pick up the phone in the school and Father Loudermilch is on the other side. When the tongue comes out of the phone, that was what I believe to be a reference to one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies.
That's immediately what I thought of. Because there is a scene in that movie where his tongue comes out.
I think it was the first one.
It
First
might have
movie.
been.
Maybe.
I remember there
I
was
could
a
be wrong.
very obvious nod to The Shining at the very start of the game.
Oh yeah, the very beginning. The very
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah. The first bit of the school.
When the school gets flooded with blood.
Yes. And there's Jessica stood there. She just gets, I don't even know, just flooded
Bombarded.
with blood. Yeah. It's a very clear Easter egg and nod to The Shining. Like, definitely.
Surely, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's only ones that have really done it, unless if it's been like a parody of The Shining.
The hidden meaning behind
Yeah, I
Outlast
haven't
2.
seen The Shining.
It's just The Shining.
Yeah, so... so Jessica's death, she didn't hang herself. We know that. She
It's
definitely didn't hang herself.
The
Well, at least it's
priest.
implied that she didn't.
Yeah.
Throughout the game, yeah, you think that, oh, she killed herself, but why? For a while, it's like, oh, she killed herself because something horrible happened to her, but then it's revealed, no, she was pushed down the stairs, and then Loudermilch hung her to make it look like she killed herself.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Realizing that truth, that was
yeah.
pretty freaky. Especially, of course, I don't relate to that on a personal level, but it's like, with all of the scandals going on with all the allegations going towards the church, I knew they were gonna, or I had a feeling they were gonna touch up on that a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not bashing Catholics as a whole, it's just a select few of people in power doing really bad things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with Outlast, I have played Outlast 1 at least 50 times. At least.
Jeez.
And I only
Game.
started playing it in 2019? 2018, 2019
It's pretty good though.
was the first time I played it.
Mm.
The
And
first time I ever saw actual Outlast gameplay was in, like, 2017, but I, like, kind of chickened out, and I'm like, no, I don't want to watch it, I don't want to get scared. But I didn't realize I could actually handle horror pretty well.
the only time I had seen Outlast before I played it was with when my dad played it. And that was literally just the last 10 minutes of the game down in the basement, down in the bunker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was my complaint with the first game. I just realized, like, when I reached the ending basement, I knew that's what the ending looked like. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm already at the end?
Yeah. Like, I've talked to, well, I watch, like, really small streamers play it, just to be able to, like, actually talk to them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And if they need help, I will point them in the right direction. Won't tell them where to go, but give them little, like, nods. But
Right.
basically, every single one of them, they have, like, thought it would have been longer. Stuff like that.
Okay.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Outlast episode. We have a latecomer, Arch Nemesis. Would you like to say some stuff about yourself?
Hi, I'm Nemesis. I'm a streamer over on Twitch, which is called Arch Nemesis Plays. Come check me out because I play every Resident Evil game, especially number 3, which makes sense.
Stars.
Oh, stars.
Okay. Back to, we were talking about how short Outlast 1 was and how people thought it would be longer.
Yes.
Because
Outlast 2 was, like, what, twice as long as the first one? First one was only, like, without...
I feel like it was more than twice.
It was a little bit more, unless you count the Whistleblower DLC. With the Whistleblower DLC, it's like 7 hours. But Outlast 2 is about, what, 8-9 hours?
Yes, close to 10, isn't it? Well, the first one's about 2 to 4, depending on how quick you play it.
See, well, with me,
Speedruns.
my highest, my shortest time on Outlast 1 is an hour. What was it? An hour 2?
Yeah.
Wow.
That sounds pretty good.
6 minutes off of the world record.
Jeez.
And then Outlast 2, I feel like it takes about 6 hours.
Oh, I completed Outlast 2 in, I think it was 4 hours.
Yeah, you could beat the second one in 4 hours. There's an achievement for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so me, Callum, and Nemesis, we took on a little challenge like a week ago to do the insane mode on Outlast 2. That didn't go very well.
That was very short-ended for me.
Technically, I
We
won
still need-
because I got an hour in twice.
We still need to redo it.
I mean, I'm down.
That could be something for Genesis.
Yes.
Right, so basically, once you die, your save resets. You're back to the helicopter,
Oh my god,
and it is painful.
I can only imagine that the AI improves as the difficulty does, right? And
Yes.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
In the last episode, in the last part, I talked about the dude who rode on the Hunchback with the freaking heat-seeking crossbow bolts that shot me through a solid door.
Yeah.
I would rage so hard if that happened to me.
I did it twice, and I got to, you know, when you're pushing the wagon with Martha when she's chasing around that little town. I got there twice and died both times there, so it was about an hour in. So I gave up, played Nightmare mode as like a little practice run, and I kept dying on that. When he's like sniping you from across the river.
Oh,
Exactly what he was talking about. It was so annoying.
that part was probably in like my least favorite part of Outlast 2.
Yeah.
I just don't get how he's so accurate.
Mm.
He's got aimbot, I told you.
He's aimbotting. You know, shrooms in the woods in Arizona, is it? Just eats them, he gets aimbot in real life.
Right, so since you're a little latecomer, Nemesis.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about all the things that you said last time we tried to do this, or like you want to just recap on what you did, what you said? We might have already said it, but say it again.
For just the general story of
Everything.
Outlast 2.
Everything,
Everything about Outlast 2.
what you can think of.
Okay, so yeah, it's personally my favourite one, as you already know, because I say that enough. And I'm a sucker for religious imagery and text in horror games, so it was right down my alleyway. I'll do that any day.
Ah.
So it was, for me, it was a perfect, not perfect game, but it was a perfect build upon Outlast 1. And the only time it really did throw me the game was the ambiguous ending. You know, you have relentless hallucinations as you get closer to the radio tower in the game, which you only learn about from one document, which I think is lacking a bit, as you know.
Yeah, it's the river.
Yeah, exactly, at the river, and I feel like it just needs to be spoke about more. You need to see the radio tower, except for when you stood on the hill. You know, just like a bit more about it. So and I love the hallucinations. It's a perfect transition every time, which I can't get enough of. I don't know how they did it so perfectly, transitioning from the forest to the school, but it works. And then the ending is so ambiguous if you don't read the comic books they released otherwise.
Yeah, they are.
Because the comic books completely explain it.
They are free, so I'm gonna definitely do that sometime.
Yeah, they are free, so it's just as easy to, go read them, which is good. But I feel like they should have just explained that in the story straight off the bat, because no one can be bothered to go read a comic book unless you actually like the comic books.
I will put the comic books, the link in the description of the video.
But the comic books basically just explain how the Wall Rider made his way miraculously to this radio tower away from the Murkoff Corporation, blew it up, and the end scene in Outlast 2, where the world gets destroyed by like a supernova of like the apocalypse, is the radio tower blowing up, and it's all hallucination. So's the baby and all that.
Yeah.
And then the Murkoff Corporation, which is called the Murkoff account, come into the Arizona forest and pick up Blake for testing. They report that there is no baby, which definitively proves the baby is a hallucination, and that's it. It's just, they could have just added that into Outlast 2. It's stupid.
They could have even done away with a simple just them hauling Blake away, and they're like, "Why is he hallucinating? There's no baby. What are they talking about?" Like, it could have been that simple, and that would have made a lot more sense.
It's precisely that. They felt like they were doing a bit of like they had a little bit of a safety net with the comic books. They realised they messed up and had to push something out quickly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, in the comics, don't they give Chris Walker a backstory?
They do, yeah. Quite a good one, actually.
I know he was a Marine that he served in Afghanistan, and he suffered from extreme PTSD and anxiety, right?
Yeah, he did, yeah. And I like that, because then when you go replay Outlast 1, it has a nicer story to him, which obviously improves his character upon what was already brilliant, to be fair.
I think the Outlast games are some of, if not the scariest games I've ever played.
They are definitely frightening. I'll give you
They're
that.
great, though. They're so good. What else was there I was thinking about? I'll fill you in on this, Nemesis. I said this in the previous part, but what made Outlast 2 for me so scary was how I was able to closely relate to a lot of the themes, if that makes sense, because I was raised Catholic.
Yes, okay.
And when I went to catechism, which is how Catholics teach their kids about God and such, I attended a private high school just for catechism, not for normal school. I went to public school. And going to the school and then back to the real world was like me going back to where I went. And I'm like, that was just so scary to me.
Just improved it upon for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge sucker for religious imagery. I can't get enough of it, you know. If you could literally make a rubbish game, include that, and I'll enjoy it, because it has so much depth to it, in my opinion, when you include it. So, I really liked it, you know, even just the details where the chapters are named after, you know, certain religious events. So, it's just down to that, and then you can pick up, I know these are a bit stupid, but you can pick up notes with hymns on it, can't you? Or, not hymns, yeah, there's hymns, and there's chapters of their, you know, what do you call it, religious text that they've wrote. And I like that, because you can read a little bit about it, and you can tell they've thought about, you know, the backstory of this town. I completely forgot the name, but...
I did notice that, yeah, where you could find some of those notes were really messed up, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. It really improves on the, you know, how awful the Arizona back desert is, this awful little town. You know, even just the fact that they're all, you know, an inbreeding community, and then throw them out, which is where Nick and Laird are, you know, the little midget and the big guy.
Yep.
I hated that. That was an awful bit for me.
It was, honestly, with the heat-seeking crossbow bolts. But one thing I didn't understand about that section, I thought I read this. Isn't that part of the town suffering from syphilis?
It is, yeah, due to the inbreeding, yeah.
Oh, that's what I figured. A bit like,
Which makes it even worse when you get, like, thrown, like, you get sick upon, or they start touching you. It just feels disgusting to me.
Oh, yeah. This is a little bit more related to history, but it's related to syphilis. A really well-known gangster here in the United States suffered from syphilis later in life. Al Capone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't know that.
He suffered, and it's like, I'm just bringing that up because it does the similar things. It just wrecks your mind later on. Like, what is it? Most people, I know Al Capone did, but by the time he reached the end of his life, he had, as like a 60-year-old, he had like the mental capacity of like a 12-year-old.
Oh, God. That's awful.
Yeah,
So he really did suffer.
Oh yeah, it's not a fun way to go. Well, then again, not many are.
So no, that's all I have to say about that, Alan. Back to you.
Where's he gone?
Right. So should we touch upon our hopes for the Outlast trials?
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
And then we will stop after
Sounds
that.
great.
Sure.
So the Outlast trials is coming out sometime this year. I don't know an exact date. I don't know if the exact date has been released. I know it's going to be crossplay with Xbox
2,
One, Series X, Series S, PlayStation 4, I think, 5.
They're gonna make it for PlayStation 4.
All of them.
Let me look it up. Outlast Trials.
Well, it would be better if they did.
I think they did, because I think it was mainly developed for last gen, wasn't it?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Outlast Trials, a PS4, PS5 release of the game has not been confirmed yet. So it looks like it could be previous gen. I'll tell you this: it'll probably run better than Cyberpunk.
Surely.
Most likely.
But so from what I can gather from the game, it takes place in the 80s, like 30 years before the first Outlast game, and it seems like it's going to be a bit like a Saw. Like, it reminds me of Saw. You know what I mean? Where you have to work together to complete puzzles and stuff.
Yeah, I kind of get you.
I'd love to see a horror game like that, other than Saw. It's like that just sounds so, especially if it's co-op. That sounds incredible.
Yeah, so I think we determined last time that there was a music recorder in one of the trailers. I think it was the first trailer drop that was prominent in the 60s, so it could be anywhere between literally the 60s and the 80s, set in the Cold War, kind of, with the the KGB and stuff. So I think it's going to be very fun to go back there.
I think it actually says Outlast Trials. I think it actually says it's in the 80s on Steam.
Okay, sweet.
The Outlast. Oh, it just says set in the era of the Cold War, so it could be 60s or 80s. You're right.
The whole 20 years and more.
Either way.
I'm really looking forward to the fact that it looks, from what we've seen, it looks quite similar to games like Dead by Daylight and stuff like that. It's going to be fun because then it adds a bit of co-op nightmare into the game, which we've all been dying for. Instead of sharing our personal experiences, we can actually share it together.
That sounds so fun. I'd love to do that.
Of course it does.
I can't wait to see how they what the story's going to be, or how it's actually supposed to tie in with the other games as well.
100%, because in Outlast 1 they hinted at MK Ultra, which was Murkoff's first ever experimentation, which we all know is a real thing as well, which makes it even more interesting. So we know the actual details behind that. So I'd love to see MK Ultra explored.
When were the MK Ultra documents declassified? Because I know in the United States it's always been it was always an urban legend. Some people are like, oh no, that's not real. But then the CIA declassified the documents and said, yeah, this thing was real. Let me look that up as well. When was MK?
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see how they can play mind control into Outlast, and how Murkoff, maybe not when they founded, but how Murkoff in the early days started up as a company and, experimented on humans, which is going to be fun. And I've always been looking forward to a horror game set in the Cold War.
Maybe we'll see the origins of Traeger a bit more.
I know Alan would like that.
That's true. I never thought about that.
That would be very interesting.
We could see...
Well,
I don't think Chris Walker would have been born yet, because he was, in his 20s, 30s? So at the time of this game, he's just like a little kid.
Yeah, I feel like it'll mostly tie in with Traeger, if any of them.
That'd make the most sense. Yeah. Maybe Vertica. He could make a cameo, because he's definitely alive at this point.
Could be. I know we're all going to play it together, I guess.
I'd be down. We'd also have to record that. We'd get some serious reactions.
Yeah, we could do that for Genesis.
Of course we could. Actually, no, it's never of course we could. We have to. We must.
we
might
must
have a
do
fourth
it.
member for Genesis if this happens.
Because they've been teasing Cold War horror games for years and years. I've been remembering every 3 years they'll tease some Cold War games set in the Soviet eras, and it's always I feel like it's an underappreciated setting for a game because of so many awful atrocities that went on during it. So even just
Maybe
the
I should do
1680s in most countries are scary.
Oh yeah. MK Ultra stopped in 1973. I'd say the 80s are far less scary, unless you hate shoulder pads and dyed hair and the
shell
Madonna
suits
music.
and all.
I just got the thought of Traeger and freaking shoulder pads. Wearing 80s attire. It's just kind of stupid, but it's hey, that's something kind of funny to ponder.
Traeger's the sixth member of the Eagles.
I need to Photoshop that now. I need to Beatles. Oh wait, you said the Eagles, not the Beatles. I'm stupid.
I said the Eagles.
The Eagles,
yeah.
Hotel California, Hotel Traeger.
Yeah, Don Henley.
Welcome to. Hey, buddy. Welcome to Hotel California.
I would like a parody
Okay,
video of
so
that now.
does anyone have any like other things they'd like to see in Outlast, the Outlast Trials?
Yes, since there's some nods to MK Ultra, the CIA began to experiment with LSD, so it looks like they could probably do some reality bending in this.
Oh, great!
Exactly that. Exactly that. That is. It was the eras of let's experiment on as many humans as possible. So they need to go crazy with this, even if it's made up stuff, that never actually took place. This is their time to fully go out there and disgust us, because that's the one thing that Outlast has a common theme of. In the first Outlast, you've got it's a lot of body horror in certain areas. You've got Whistleblower, you've got Eddie doing gross things to you.
Oh,
and Outlast 2, everyone's getting pulled apart on racks and stuff. For me, I feel like they need to carry on that theme and just disgust us.
Like, maybe there could be one thing.
Oh. Talking about Eddie, Eden, do you wanna
Yes.
share what you got for Eddie to Nemesis since he wasn't
So
here?
yeah, we'll link the Reddit post, but remember at the beginning of Whistleblower when you're playing as Waylon and this guy comes up to the window, he's like, get me out, and then they hook him up to the wall rider?
I do, yeah.
If you look up, you can find the post under the wrecked image, but that guy is Eddie.
Is it?
That's Eddie Gluskin, and it's confirmed because on the monitor.
It's on the
Yeah,
monitor.
you can see subject Eddie Gluskin. So that's him.
Pod 2. Eddie Gluskin.
I've got it open now. Let me have a look. There's
Yeah,
no way we wouldn't have missed something like that.
I don't get how we missed that.
We did.
Oh my god,
did
it says
miss it.
patient Eddie Gluskin. Wow.
So Callum, do you have any things you want to see in Outlast Trials?
Yeah. Well, obviously it's going to be multiplayer, so there's going to be, multiple people in a story mission or whatever it is. But
Usually what multiplayer means.
yes. I really hope they adapt that sort of gameplay aspect quite well, because there are a few games like that are just god awful. Sort of like horror games that are just multiplayer and they're just bad. But if they can find a good balance between a storytelling perspective and a good sort of thing, with the multiplayer, so each individual player can find, bits of the story, to themselves and together, I think that would be the best thing, in my opinion, for the new game.
And you and your friends help piece it together.
Yes.
I think one thing they have to be very careful of is, though, let's say it's 3 to 4 players. How are these people going to experience the horror at the same time and not just, individually, so people feel left out? Which I'm looking forward to. Is it just one big hulking guy like Chris Walker chasing us, or is there multiple things going on? They need to find a good balance to scare everyone if you split up a little bit, than just one of us at a time, if you get me. I'm alone in that one.
Well, there's one thing I'm really hoping for, and that's that I can't remember what the type of, I can't remember the actual name for it, but the actual party chat where you only hear them when you're close to them.
Ah, yeah.
Oh,
Like
proximity.
Your friends. Yeah, proximity, that's it. I really hope they do something like well with that.
I could see
That'd be
some
brilliant.
I could see some funny moments coming from that, if you know what I mean. Like if you're hiding.
Even with normal audio as well, like if there's for example, the enemy breaks down a door, the person right next to it will hear it very loud, and then people across the map they just hear a tiny little crash.
Thud.
And a far distant scream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you hear your friend go, oh, and then,
the scream slowly gets
You-
louder as he comes towards you very
And
quickly.
then you see the monster behind him, and
You
you're running
just-
and screaming too.
You just hear from across the map. This is what will happen when we play it. Use free will be across the map somewhere, or however the game's going to work. And I will be on my own, and it'll be all calm. You're doing what you're supposed to do, and I get a jump scare, and all you hear in the distance is just me shouting, "Jesus Christ!"
I guess there's only really one way to find out.
Just to actually find out.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it'll be good to play it as a group though. Especially,
Yeah.
I've already got ideas how it's going to be edited as well.
Yeah,
channel.
with different perspectives at a
Switching,
time.
yeah, switching perspectives.
Has anyone else watched the trailer?
Oh.
I've assumed you have.
Yeah,
It's been a little while.
Yeah. Do you remember how the guy's running down the corridor and he sees that big, brutish guy, very brooding, standing
Yeah.
behind him, and he gets pulled up by the lady, and she gets stabbed, doesn't she?
yes.
Now, so does that mean there's now going to be multiple enemies rather than this one big hulking guy
I
like
think-
Chris Walker?
I think either way it would have been more than one.
Yeah. It would be more fun because then otherwise one guy could bait and switch the big guy, couldn't he? If you get me.
Yeah.
I'd like
I
to see.
personally cannot wait. But yeah, that's us just reached almost an hour now altogether.
Oh wow, it did. You're right.
Should we start like packing up?
I'd say so.
Sure.
Yeah. So, do you guys have anything you just want to say before I rant?
Yeah.
Little pig.
We could have been lovely together.
You promote socials and that. Go for it.
For me, little pig.
So yeah, you can find me on Twitch, which is Arch Nemesis Plays, and that's Nemesis like the huge BioW tyrant from Nemesis 3.
My channel will be in the description.
I mean, that is one way to do it.
Nice.
Cal?
Okay. My channel on YouTube is Henry Thomas 007. That's for YouTube, and for Twitch, it's Henry Thomas 007. That is my social.
Man of many names.
Because you forgot the password, Raw. You forgot the password to 007
Yeah.
on Twitch.
Yep, we don't talk about that though.
Well,
Oh, we will.
hello everyone who made it to the end. If you did, thank you. That means a lot. Basically, I know it stopped very sudden. I can't remember what happened. The episode was filmed maybe a week and a half before it's going out, which is going out in a few hours after I'm recording this. Basically, I'd just like to say a big thank you to people who listen to the podcast, because I really enjoy doing this, and I have now put together a team of voice actors and graphics designers, although we haven't had too many. We haven't had many of the episodes that actually use their thumbnails yet. So it's mainly just been me, or I think all of them have been me, now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that's listened. We are almost at 800 800 views / listens altogether. That means a lot. We are into our 5th month of doing this. I didn't think we'd have 800 views / listens at this point. As of right now, I just uploaded the Tales of an Unmarked Town story by Dr. Horrible 26 on Reddit. That's only been out for about an hour or so, and that's already got about 25 views. Only on YouTube though. I haven't actually put it on Spotify yet. It should be out on Spotify when this video comes out. But 778 views / listens just now, if you don't include the ones that are coming in just now from the Unmarked Town story. There are plenty of stories coming soon. We have a few that is coming out in the next few weeks. We have a few that isn't actually me doing them. My little team I put together, they're going to do a few. So not all of them are going to be me anymore, but most of them will be. Hence it's my podcast and all. But it will be good to have other people do them. It'll also mean we can get videos out more frequently, so that'll be good. There's a few stories that will come out in the next few days after this is uploaded, because I'm in that kind of mood I was like right at the start, like just mass produce, just get videos out, just do it all properly. But yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone, and for the people that let me use their stories, I'm very grateful for that. So that's about all I want to say, and I'll see you in the next video, the next episode of Fright Nights, or the next story, wherever I'll see you next. Goodbye.